Hello, and welcome to our first annual tribute event, honoring the lives of those that have left us and the tremendous contributions they gave to the college. My name is Deb Harris. I'm the chair-elect of the College of Education and Human Sciences Alumni and Friends Board. The Friends Board is the leadership board of the College of Education Alumni and Friends chapter. The chapter supports the interests of the students, alumni, and friends of the college. The board increases private and public support for the wide variety of academic programs in the college. Board members engage with key stakeholders to promote the college and help to establish and maintain mutually beneficial relationships between the college and its alumni and friends. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our MC for today's event. Duffy Swan is such a good friend to the college, to the UNM Alumni Association, and to the university. He and his wife, Jean Ann, are faithful supporters of our college's Department of Special Education. Duffy is always there to lend a helping hand. In his professional life, Duffy is the recently retired chairman of French Funerals in Albuquerque.
Thank you very much, Deb. And as she mentioned, this is the first of what will be an annual event hosted by this college's alumni chapter. It's designed to recognize the richness of the legacies of people who are truly difference makers in so many wonderful ways. The circle of impact for those we are honoring today and those who will be honored at future such events can be small, medium, or large. The size of their respective circles matters not at all. What matters is that each of these people took what they had and chose to bring lasting benefits to others, and they did so without any concern for recognition, award, or honor. These are among the reasons that they are special. We thank the 8 families who have shared their tributes for their loved ones with us. And for families who did not share a tribute this time, but may want to have their respective loved ones remembered in the future, please consider submitting a tribute for next year's memorial service. So let us begin by watching a tribute video that will highlight the purpose for this memorial service. This video highlights, of course, that we remember, but we also grieve. Grief is another means of recognizing that someone's life was lived well and that it made an impact. It's only natural for us to want more time, some additional moments, another round of conversations, perhaps, with those we love and miss. This is why the warmth of these memories and the fingerprints of those we are honoring are seemingly everywhere we turn. And again, these moments speak to difference maker lives. We truly would not have it any other way. Each of us wants to live our own lives as fully and as meaningfully as possible, just as these we are honoring today have done. So yes, we grieve, but we do so in gratitude, knowing that we are even better because of what these special people have given to us or done for us. Thus, during the next several minutes, I will be introducing leaders from this college who will be highlighting the lives of those we are honoring today. Before I do, though, I want to add that the college mourns the loss of Joni Goodman, an instructor and clinical supervisor in elementary education. We were notified just this week about her passing, so she too is being remembered today, along with so many others, as we join together now to pause and reflect on lives so well lived. And our first tribute presenter is Ruth Luckison. And in a sense, I feel that I'm introducing Ruth Luckison as a family member because our youngest granddaughter, Kirsten, has Down syndrome, and she's a direct beneficiary of Ruth's lifelong work. Ruth is a distinguished professor and a nationally recognized leader in the field of special education. This includes law, public policy, teacher preparation, clinical judgment, in educational diagnosis, and much more. Ruth has served as the chair in the American Bar Association Commission on Mental Health and Physical Disability Law, and she's widely published and is a recipient of numerous awards. In the short space of our time together, there is simply no way to bring forward all of her impacts and pioneering work in her field. So with this all too short introduction, Ruth, please welcome distinguished Professor Ruth Luckison.
Thank you very much, Duffy. I'm pleased today to be able to read a memorial for Gary Todd Montague. A friend noted that Gary was always by his wife's side, inspiring her to do her best while quietly going about his work, even during declining health. His engaging smile invited others to persevere, and they enjoyed his sonorous voice. Gary Ted Montague loved his God, his wife, his country, music, and tools of all kinds. He faced many challenges and went on to win 6 awards for his book, Victory from the Shadows, Growing Up in a New Mexico School for the Blind and Beyond. Ann Hillerman called Gary's story one of strength, resilience, and optimism. It documents domestic life in the mid-20th century New Mexico homestead and farm on the Eastern Plains. He describes in a straightforward manner how his family reared a boy with special needs and the conundrum of living with low vision. He shows his perspective of the educational and employment challenges of those with little or no vision from 1936 to 1994, and includes current observations and resources. Gary became a residential student at the specialized school at the age of 8. Thereafter, he spent Christmases and summers on his family farm. He graduated from the University of New Mexico College of Education with the assistance of 300 volunteer readers, and married his college sweetheart and co-author, Elaine Carson Montague. Gary believed one should persevere with integrity, whatever the challenge. He was a determined trailblazer His career spanned more than 30 years at Sandia National Laboratories in areas of education and training and safety engineering. He worked in the sighted world with few accommodations. The Americans with Disabilities Act, which would eventually prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities, was not passed until 4 years before he retired. Gary is published in the 2018 Southwest Writers Anthology and a 2019 newsletter of the Albuquerque National Federation of the Blind. He gave talks, was featured in a magazine article on a podcast, and his YouTube video was presented at a conference of a history society. Victory was chosen the 2020 Best Biography in the Communications Contest of the National Federation of Press Women, and won first place in the Parenting and Family category of the 2020 New Mexico, Arizona Book Awards. Gary wanted Victory to be used in general and special education teacher training programs. A parent of a child with Down syndrome and a second with Tourette's told the Montagues, quote, "Victory is not a book about vision loss. It is a book about hope." And hope is what Gary was about. In the spirit of this hope, integrity, and resilience, Elaine and Gary recently established the Elaine and Gary Montague Victory from the Shadows Endowed Scholarship in Special Education. We thank them for their generous endowment that serves as a permanent testament to their victory story and will help students achieve their dream to become special education teachers long into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Now I have the privilege of introducing the boss, Dean Hansel Burley. He was named the Dean of the College of Education and Human Sciences in July of last year. Imagine taking over such a key position in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. But he brought to this position an incredible background and a wealth of professional experience that allowed him to continue one of the key threads in the tapestry of his career, and that is creating access and the means for students to thrive and succeed in higher education and then go on and do something with those skills. Prior to coming to UNM, Dean Burley was the chair of the Education Psychology and Leadership Department and a professor of educational psychology at Texas Tech University. And beginning in 2016 at that university, he led the largest graduate program. And like Ruth, he is widely published and well recognized for his work in his chosen field. Please welcome now Dean Hansel Burley.
Thank you, Duffy. Sue Petey was born in Northfield, Ohio on May 5th, 1919. Her father died when she was a teenager, leaving her mother to raise 4 children alone. She was an excellent student and valedictorian of her senior class. She also received a college scholarship to Kent State University, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Education cum laude in 1940. In 1941, she married Harry Petey, and that's Harry Petey Jr. Harry joined the Air Force, where he served in World War II. After the war, Major and Mrs. Petey were stationed in Bermuda, Massachusetts. And for the 8 years of the Eisenhower presidency, Harry was operations director of Andrews Air Force Base. That's the home base of Air Force One. He was also the personal pilot for John Foster Dulles, Secretary of State, Harry flew Dulles to all the European capitals to foster the economic recovery of Europe. Following retirement, he and Sue moved to Albuquerque, and in 1964, Harry died. Sue decided to use her college degree for useful employment. After a year, she decided she was not destined to start as an elementary teacher at her age. She then took classes to refresh her minor in library science. She applied at Zimmerman Library and worked for over 20 years as a federal publications librarian. After retirement, she joined other library retirees for 10 years as a volunteer. In May 2019, she celebrated her 100th birthday with several relatives who flew in from East and West. She passed away November 20th, 2019. Sue Petey remembered the College of Education and Human Sciences through a bequest in her will that has established the Harry A. Petey and Sarah Ann Petey Memorial Scholarship. Her thoughtful gift is being put to good use to help worthy and deserving students in two important ways. First, the scholarship is helping low-income students with state exam fees that are required for teacher licensure. Second, the scholarship is providing awards to students whose financial hardship during the pandemic forced them to halt or cut back on their coursework. In this way, this important scholarship will help the college to graduate a higher number of well-qualified teachers and other professionals to meet the needs of New Mexico's children and adolescents. The college is extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Burley. I want to welcome now Trina Walker, our next presenter. She's a professor and past chair of the Department of Teacher Education and Educational Leadership and Policy. And like our prior presenters, she has an excellent professional background that includes middle and secondary schools in the areas of history and language arts. In addition, she's been a supervisor of student teachers and has held several administrative positions in higher education. Trina has served as a Fulbright Scholar in Kosovo and conducted 5 weeks institute in American education for 10 undergraduate students from the University of Pristina. These students were preparing to become full-time teachers in the Republic of Kosovo. And in today's global economy, having such experience can add much to our young student teachers here as they too are preparing for their professional careers. With that, please welcome Trina.
Thank you, Duffy. It's my honor today to deliver this tribute to Dr. Ann Madsen. Dr. Ann Lee Madsen, age 74, passed away unexpectedly in the early morning of May 11th, 2020. Ann was a beloved mother, daughter, sister, and true friend to many. She was born May 4th, 1946, in Provo, Utah, to Kenneth and Barbara Madsen. Ann is survived by her sister, Kay Newman, and her daughter, Sarah Beth Nason. Ann was in 5th grade in Pontiac, Michigan when Sputnik launched, and science and math became priorities in many schools overnight. She loved school, and her math teachers really challenged her. Maybe this is where the seed was planted to share her love of learning with others. While attending Michigan State University, Ann began her lifelong career as an educator. While working on her undergraduate studies, Ann taught junior high school in Jackson, Michigan, and took classes in the mornings and evenings. When she became pregnant, she left teaching for a time to help raise her newborn daughter, Sarah, with the help of her former husband, Steve. Ann returned to work as a math consultant at the Jackson Area Career Center while simultaneously working on her PhD. Her doctoral research focused on a junior high school teacher who was considered the best math teacher at the school. Anne introduced manipulatives as teaching methods as a way to encourage the teacher to leave the books and paper behind and teach more conceptually. The aha moment for the teacher came when the students started telling her that fractions and decimals were the same thing. She was convinced and changed her teaching methods after that. Anne was offered a tenure track position at the University of Texas in Austin, and while teaching at UT, she completed and defended her dissertation. She received her PhD from Michigan State University in curriculum, teaching, and education policy. Anne taught math ed courses around the world while traveling with her daughter Sarah in faraway places like Thailand, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico. But it was at the University of New Mexico where she finally found her home. Anne was incredibly dedicated to her students at UNM, where she served as Associate Dean for the College of Education and Associate Professor of Elementary Education for over 25 years. Some of her friends and colleagues from UNM recently reflected on their favorite memories of Anne. Erin Olson said, "While I was never a student of Anne's, I worked for her in the College of Education for several years. She was not only someone to whom I reported at UNM, but proved to be a mentor and friend, and she was someone who I loved with all my heart." Sorry. When I moved to Seattle, she introduced me to her daughter, who is, to this day, one of my closest friends. Anne made sure that I had the stability that I needed to start my life anew. She was a beautiful, caring soul, and I miss her every day. Joan Goodman fondly remembered Anne's penchant for fashion, recalling how she came to work every day dressed to the nines with matching dresses, purses, jewelry, and shoes. She loved fancy shoes. And when her students would start to hear a clickety-clack coming down the hall, they would laugh and say, "Here comes Dr. Madsen." Joan also said that Anne's door was always open to her students, and because she saw the opportunity to learn in everything, she inspired future teachers to see learning as a lifelong universal quest, not just something limited to textbooks. She knew her students and respected her students for being who they were and for being fellow learners and fellow human beings. When Emeriti faculty member Deb Riffenberry was Associate Dean for the College of Education, she would walk down the hall on her way to the dean's area and see Anne's classroom door open. She would always be doing something creative with her students. Deb would poke her head in and say to Anne's students, "You are so lucky to have Dr. Madsen as a teacher because she makes learning math fun." I have such happy memories and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work closely with her in the dean's area, Deb said. Her humor, joy, and kindness were traits to be cherished. Anne's daughter, Sarah, remembers her mom as being the most happy and fulfilled when she was teaching. She lived for learning and sharing that learning with her students. Mom was dedicated to making math more equitable, accessible, and fun for everyone, and would spend hours poring over lesson plans to come up with new, creative ways to teach. She inspires me to approach everything I do with that same amount of integrity and commitment, and that's something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She took a tremendous amount of pride in her work, and our family is grateful to honor her legacy by creating the Anne Madsen Memorial Math Scholar Endowment at UNM. I have a personal note I'd also like to add about Anne. If you'll bear with me, I'm sorry. When I came to UNM in 2015 as a department chair, Anne was the first person to stop in and welcome me and offer her help. She was a walking repository of the faculty handbook and all things UNM. I found that every time I had a question, she could point me right to the answer. She helped me over many of the initial bumps in the road and was a great confidant. Above all, she was a fan of The Walking Dead television series, and we often recapped episodes and storylines. She was a good friend and colleague to me all the years that I knew her. I also want to say with great sadness about the passing of another member of the College of Education, and that is one of Ann's closest friends, Joan, or as Ann called her, Joni Goodman, who passed away yesterday. Joan was an instructor in teacher preparation in the College of Education, and she was one of our most impactful and reliable instructors and student teaching supervisors. She was appreciated by administrators and faculty and loved by students. Joni was actually a student of Ann's at one point and learned from the best. She and Ann shared great respect and friendship for one another. When Ann agreed to take on the role of Associate Dean, I asked her who she would like to teach her math education methods classes, and she didn't even hesitate. She said, Joni Goodman. Given how Ann felt about her students, this was an awesome compliment and attestation of the respect she had for her. I know that Joan contributed some of the words spoken here today in tribute to Ann, and it has been my honor to deliver this tribute to both of them. The college has truly lost two kind and dedicated teachers of teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trina. It's now my pleasure to welcome back Deb Harris, who's the chair-elect for this alumni chapter, and she too is a nationally recognized and nationally awarded professional in the fields of public and school health. She will introduce our final tribute for today.
Thank you, Duffy. We are grateful to Kathleen Cordova and her family for establishing the Melvin and Consuelo Cordova Endowed Future Teacher Scholarship in 2017 in honor of their parents. This scholarship supports future teachers in the college during their student teaching. Melvin Arnaldo Cordova passed away on April 9th, 2020. He was passionate in the belief that education has the ability to transform lives. He grew up in a family of educators. His father was a principal and his uncle was one of his teachers. He was born in 1926 to Ippolito and Cipriana Cordova in the small village of La Jolla, New Mexico, where he grew up with his brother Rudy, sister Lobelia, and a younger brother Vincent, who all became teachers. During World War II, before high school graduation, Melvin Cordova served as a corpsman in the Navy. At the graduation ceremony, there was an empty chair for each of the boys who had already left for the war. His mother said when he returned from the service that he was not interested in attending college. But his mother had his older brother, Rudy, take him to Albuquerque to register for classes at UNM. There, he received a Bachelor's of Science degree in Spanish with a minor in education. Quonset huts were set up on University Avenue to house the soldiers returning to school, and years later, in the 1970s, his daughter attended dental hygiene classes in those very same Quonset huts. Shortly after graduation from UNM, Melvin Cordova married Consuelo Mirabel. They went dancing as a first date, and they danced together for over 69 years. They moved to Pecos, New Mexico, where Melvin started his career in education. He attended Highland University, where he received his master's degree in business administration. Upon completion of his degree, he moved his family to El Rito, New Mexico, as a high school principal. El Rito was a boarding campus. It was a normal school, started in 1909 to train teachers. A tribute from the Gonzalez sisters read, "Mr. Cordova was always there to help us. He was very influential in our educational and social development and led with strong convictions and values. His guidance inspired us to have a good sense of place, sense of culture, and self-identity. We are grateful to have had his support in our lives." Interestingly, one of the first recipients of the Melvin and Consuelo Cordova Future Teacher Endowment was a student from El Rito. Mr. Cordova's career in education would span 40 years and include serving in Cuba, New Mexico Independent School District. He was always innovative in bringing education to all. In Cuba, some of the bus rides were quite far into the Navajo reservation, and Mr. Cordova arranged for educational television on the buses in the 1960s. He also started evening classes to allow adults to earn their GED, allowing them to improve their job prospects. Mr. Cordova was executive director of the state school boards in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then superintendent of the Zuni School District. As executive director of the state school boards, he traveled throughout the state to help achieve excellence in New Mexico education. Mr. Melvin Cordova is survived by his wife, Consuelo Cordova, and 9 children, all of whom attended UNM and all who achieved degrees in higher education. 6 of his children were attending University of New Mexico at the same time. Melvin Cordova was respected and loved by many and will be forever missed.
Thank you, Deb. As we bring this first memorial tribute to a close, I want to begin by thanking Ruth and Dean Burley, Trina, and Deb for sharing the insights about those we've honored today. Equally, we want to extend a special thanks to each family who allowed us to share just a bit about their loved one. It was most generous of you to do so, and we appreciate it greatly. Likewise, we want to pause and thank the many others who contribute to the successes of both teachers and students at every level. People like coaches, counselors, principals, other administrators, assistants, staff, and volunteers. All play key roles and add value each day to our education outcomes. Finally, I want to share a true story as a summary of what we've heard and learned today. An American student, an education major, completed her student teaching and coursework, and upon graduating from college, chose to join an organization that offered teaching assignments in foreign countries. She chose Africa, and she was sent to Kenya, where she taught students in different villages for 7 years. At the end of this time, she decided to return to her home state in order to continue her education. But prior to her departure, many in the villages, grateful for all she had done for them as a teacher, joined together to host a farewell reception for her. Included in this farewell, many of her current and former students brought small gifts as a further display of their gratitude for her work among them. One gift in particular stood out. It was a beautifully polished seashell. And as she opened the gift, she said to the young student standing next to her, the one who had given it to her, "Adamu, how did you get this for me? The ocean is more than 15 kilometers from your village." And he replied, "Long walk, part of gift." We've had the privilege this afternoon to hear the stories of some incredible people, truly those who were difference makers. What is not readily apparent is that each of them, along with each of our college education and health sciences professionals who introduced them, have all had long walks in their own journeys. These may have included an occasional setback, a sleepless night or two, moments of discouragement, perhaps some uncertainties and unexpected demands and challenges along the way, like a global pandemic. Each of these we've honored today contributed greatly to the well-being and betterment of others, but each had to take and make some form of long walks that helped polish the gifts that they gave and left for us. Such are among the reasons they did indeed make these lasting impacts. They were willing to make long walks on behalf of others, and thus we are richer for what they chose to do and to give. As we close, may each of us recognize that part of our own journeys, part of our lasting legacies, includes periods of long walks. These in their own right bring forth the beauty and wonder that comes with the gifts we can give away to others. So may each of you who have joined us today find great fulfillment, great wonder, great joy and encouragement in all you do in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. Thank you again to all of you who made this time possible, and to each of you who have joined in. I wish each of you a most blessed day and a fulfilling and happy journey.